Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV.
Hello, welcome to Parrot TV's program, World Inkers Network. I'm your noble and honest host, Dustin Pickering. Today we have Drew Wohlford, who wrote poetry in grade school and junior high to impress girls and had a couple published in combination books. He co-wrote 3 movie scripts with his cousin Dave in high school, and he started his first novel in 1985. In 1990, he had a creative writing course with Dr. Nadeau at St. Francis in Fort Wayne, Indiana. In 2012, he first self-published a children's story called Percy's Big Ride. He also wrote some business books and a couple of short stories, including Mona Lisa Has Lost Her Smile and An Angel Named George. After getting long COVID, he started writing short stories for his grandchildren. He is currently working on book 5 of that series. Then Best Pizza was born. He had quite a few people who read it and asked for an origin story for the main character, so he wrote Before Best Pizza. Then he decided he didn't want the main character rotting in a mental hospital for the rest of his life. He wrote Beyond Best Pizza. Kiel TV is a new superhero origin story that he will continue after he is finished with his current work in progress, Twat Waffle. Thanks for joining us on the program, Drew. It's nice to meet you. How are you today?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on, Dustin.
It's wonderful to have you on the program. So let me ask you, when did you start writing and why?
I tell you, I've always been interested in writing. And in fact, I didn't even think I was going to get married. I thought I would be right now in Hollywood, hanging around with the big stars, writing TV and movie scripts. But I guess it was, probably 7th, 8th grade that I started writing to impress girls, like any heavyset little guy does.
True.
And then just blossomed from there. I really enjoy putting words onto paper.
That's interesting. So what has failure taught you about yourself? I mean, I mean, everyone fails. Everyone has shortcomings, and you put the work forward, and then it doesn't quite materialize. And I noticed in your bio, there's a lot of, we did this, and then it didn't pan out, kind of thing. So I'm just curious, like, these shortcomings that you've had, what have they taught you about yourself?
I don't believe in bumps in the road. Those
Hmm.
are just launching points to greatness. And
Okay.
so I learn how not to do something so I can learn to do something.
Hmm. Well, that's very much an optimist worldview.
Yeah, well, I try to stay optimistic. If you're pessimistic all the time, all you're going to see is bad things. But if
Right.
you're optimistic, you're just going to see the good in the world. I mean, you're going to see the bad, but with the
Hmm.
optimism, you continue to go on.
True. So, what is your writing process like? Do you have habits, or what puts you in the mood to write?
I tell you, it's just finding the time to do it more than anything. Back when I first started writing, it was Chicago blues that I would listen to, and that would take me out of myself and into the writing. Now I can write with distractions and that type stuff, and sometimes, unfortunately, those distractions get on the page,
Hmm.
but it's just a matter of setting yourself some time to write.
Hmm.
And even if you can't come up with the ideas at that moment that you want to write, maybe write something else. And that's what I did, like with Best Pizza. Uh, it was so disturbing to me that I would write a couple children's stories, and then I would write a couple chapters of Best Pizza, and it kind of grounded me out. So that way I didn't take on the characterization of my main character, which would be bad.
Hmm. So, what can you tell us about that Best Pizza? What is the premise of that?
Well, it's about a man who lost his mother, and he didn't react well to it.
Hmm.
And so there's a serial killer in town, and he is taking care of ladies in town, and then chopping parts of their bodies off and saving them as souvenirs.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's
Wow.
pretty disturbing. I don't even know where it came from, to be quite honest with you. It just came to me, and it's been in the back of my mind, and I needed to get it out.
That's interesting, and so you sit down, and if you even if you don't have any ideas, really, you let the process kind of flow through you, and just kind of, as a creative writer, you just do you just improvise sometimes on the page, or do you just how do you go about kind of getting the ideas from yourself and inside you onto the page, even when there's like nothing there? Sometimes, I mean, that's writer's block.
Right. I always keep my notebook or notepad open on my phone. So I'll come up with an idea in the middle of the night, and I'll type it out real fast and go back to bed. Of course, sometimes next morning I don't know what I'm talking about, but I always have that wealth to to draw from. I mean, a pad of paper and a pen is what I used before that. I would keep one on my nightstand, and I would just write down anything that comes to my mind. And a lot of the stuff that in the children's books is actually stuff the grandkids say.
Hmm.
And so we have one called Dot Dots, because my granddaughter Clara made up this story about we have invisible creatures living in our house called Dot Dots. So now there's a whole story about Dot Dots, and probably will be a second one, I imagine.
Interesting. So, what do you count as your greatest literary success?
I think Best Pizza, as
Hmm.
much as I hate it, but because
Why
of
is
the
that?
content.
Why would you think you hate your best literary success? But that's interesting. But why would you count it your best literary success?
Because it was the best received, I guess.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay.
I enjoyed the character, unfortunately, of George. It has some aspects of relatives in it that are long gone now, and so I mean it's like a memory trip, but with a little murder in it too.
So you kind of improvised a little bit with, or what do you call it, got creative with the story, and took some actual nonfiction elements, but you threw in like you just kind of invented something out of your own life.
Right, right.
Quite interesting.
And
It's Go ahead.
and I know, like, I've got a couple screenplays right now being looked at in Hollywood. One of them is a Hallmark type movie, and I got the idea from that from going down to Santa Claus, Indiana. And
Hmm.
so they're looking at that. And then I've also got one on St. Nicholas, the real St. Nicholas, not the Santa Claus, that's being
Mhm.
looked at. I'm hoping for a full length movie.
Interesting. I'll let you look on that. So tell us about your fiction. Why did you decide to write fiction, and what do you intend to say with it?
Well, I want to make a mark
Hmm.
in the world that nobody else has made, I guess, is what I want to say. Uh, I enjoy fiction because it lets me use my creativity. It allows me to be me rather than be in a box.
Hmm.
And as you can see in the fiction world right now, anything crazy is good, and
Hmm.
anything good is crazy.
Right.
But I think it just helps me develop myself as a better person because the stuff that I'm dealing with, I can put on the page and deal with it that way rather than uh, take it out on the wife or the grandkids or the kids.
It was kind of a cathartic experience to write some new story. How do you feel when you complete a story?
Relieved until my wife starts editing it, and then I'm
When you never know what she'll come up with. She might throw in some strange details that you weren't aware of,
yeah. Or why did he do this?
or figure out something that, like, hey, wait a minute, I'm in this story, I think.
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. She's been in stories. Kids have been in stories. I've got friends in
Mhm.
stories. I've got one good friend right now in Twat Waffle, and she's kind of upset that I put her on a farm.
Ah, well, farm's not so bad, I guess.
No, she runs the farm. I told her she didn't have to work too hard.
Interesting. So, does your work, previous work as a DJ, did it ever influence your storytelling? Did you learn a lot about people that you would kind of incorporate in there, or into your work as a fiction writer?
Yeah, there's a lot of people in my life that are characters.
Hmm.
We had one guy in Huntington that wore lederhosen all the time and played the accordion. I mean, so
Hmm.
and I don't shy away from those people. In
Hmm.
fact, I'm kind of drawn to the oddballs because I'm an oddball myself.
Hmm.
So I enjoy learning about them and what makes them tick. And some of that I can incorporate in the writing.
Hmm. Interesting. So we talked a little bit about being an optimist earlier. How would you convey like some habits that people could develop to be more of an optimist?
Well, I think it's just there's three sides to every story is what I always say. There's her side, his side, and the right side, which is a
Hmm.
combination of the two. So if somebody's talking about somebody to you, or you've heard that somebody's talking about you, go to that person, because that is going to free up that relationship. They might not understand what you're going through or what you're doing, but it's better to talk to somebody than to talk about them,
Hmm.
is what I always say. So you might as well go to them, and it helps things come clear. And if they still don't like you, oh well.
Right.
there there are
True.
millions of people in the world, and not everybody has to like you.
Right. So just kind of developing interpersonal skills and relationships is a good foundation for a healthier and better attitude. I would say, yeah, I would agree with that. So what are some of the most interesting people you've met in your life journey?
Well, I did meet Cab Calloway, the old big band singer. At three
Okay.
o'clock in the morning, I had to drive down to Indianapolis to pick my brother up, who was flying in from the army, and he was the first person off the plane. And what's funny is nobody else recognized him, so I got to talk to him for about 30 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it was kind of fun. I got his autograph on a piece of paper, and we went on our way. I've met all kinds of celebrities through being a disc jockey.
Hmm.
I helped host a comedy night at a comedy bar in Fort Wayne, so I got to meet a lot of comedians. Uh, and I can't say I have a favorite because
Hmm.
they're all a little different.
Right. Some are
But
shocking and some are flowing, and it
yeah,
just varies on the personality. It's like poetry is the same way, or any kind of art is the personality shines out of the artist.
right, right, and it's fun because you can take some of these personalities and you can see what they're doing now, and you're saying, "Oh man, I wouldn't have done that."
Hmm. Yeah.
But
Interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see. I like the mix of people in the world, and they come together and they create things, out of their own natures, and it's interesting to see what completely contrasting people can come up with, even if you put them together and they come up with something really, bizarre. It's like cooking a stew or something.
right, and it's like I got news today that a friend of mine is translating The Chosen, who is
Mm.
another friend of mine, into uh, another language,
Oh, okay.
and for broadcast in that town or in that country. So it's interesting because I know both these people, but they didn't know I knew them. As
Hmm.
far as one knew the
Right.
other, and they came together, and I think it's just really fun to watch them work together.
That's fun. So, where do you turn for inspiration when writing runs cold?
A lot of times, it's my dreams.
Hmm.
I have very vivid colored dreams that are very bizarre sometimes, and it's not what I eat. uh, that, and sometimes I'll just take a walk
Oh.
in nature, or
Hmm.
as much as I can walk right now with long COVID, but or take a drive in the country and take some photographs of barns or covered bridges or something like that. And you try to think about the history of these things. Sometimes I'll be reading an article and it's like, oh, I didn't know that. I wonder if I can incorporate that into a story.
Hmm. One thing I like to do is just read all kinds of different things, and just sort of like let those things coalesce and see what I come up with. Like all these different inputs from different things come into my mind, and they sometimes sparks, like it's like hitting flint on each other. Hitting flint rocks on sparking a fire. It's like just letting the information and the different perspectives come into your brain, and just then suddenly something sparks out. Have you ever had that experience where you're just listening or reading about different things, and you have ideas that just happen?
Oh, absolutely. I don't think you can be a good writer without being a good reader
Mm-hmm.
because other people's written works were inspired by them. So,
Mm-hmm.
what can they inspire us by reading them?
Right.
One of my favorite books growing up was Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator,
Mm-hmm.
which was the sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I wish they would have made it into a movie because it's great. And I've
Mm-hmm.
read it 2 or 3 times. Encyclopedia Brown. I don't know if you're familiar with that series or not.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah. Each chapter is a mystery, and you have to solve the mystery at the end of the chapter. The answers are in the back of the book, but more times than not, I'll just go to the next one without looking at the answers if I can't get it, and then come back to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's I incorporate some of that into what I write.
Mm-hmm. So, how would you describe your children's fiction? Would it be something that you would want other children to read, or just your grandkids, or how would you want to see that portrayed in people's minds?
Yeah, they're good for bedtime stories. They're nice and short, so the parents aren't reading, or grandparents aren't reading a 20-page book or a 30-page book to get the kid to sleep. You can read
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 of these and still be able to get out and get the kid to sleep and have the rest of your evening. And I do collections of short stories, is what I do. There might be 16 to 25 stories in a book.
Hmm. It's a fair good volume number of stories.
But you know,
So
it's fun.
yeah, it's fun to write. It's an enjoyable experience, and it's enjoyable to see people's reactions. We'll take a brief break here, but we'll be right back with some of Drew's work. We're fascinated, and we'll see what happens. World Inkers Monthly magazine is a fine source for your literary interests. It's an all-source magazine with poetry, prose, and essays and articles, as well as interviews. It's all full-color art and photography from a variety of voices and artists. You will find this magazine entertaining. This is an all-purpose readership, and we are looking for new voices. This sleek, full-color edition of World Inkers Monthly magazine will be something pleasant for your eyes as well as for your mind. And we're looking for authors for one book promotion in the magazine. If you're a business, we want to promote your business. You may submit your book reviews, your academic or non-academic articles on the humanities and the arts, as well as your literary writing and creative output to publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. World Inkers Monthly magazine does not spare any ink. Keep inking for World Inkers Monthly magazine. Welcome back to the show, guys. Thanks for watching. I would advise people to subscribe to our channel if they wish. And well, let's listen to some of Drew's wonderful works of fiction and see what we have to say about it at the end of after he's through reading.
And you know, I did think of one poem.
Okay.
And once again, it was written to impress girls. Phone rings in the middle of the night. Should I stumble for the phone or should I fumble for the light? A lot of good the light will do if the phone stops ringing. And it was you. Isabella drinks pickle juice. This is one of the short stories from the kids department. She could have a cup of milk or water. Juice would be great, and that would be enough. She could drink all the pop she could want in this world, but why, oh, why would this little girl? She could drink out of cups or bottles or mugs. She could drink out of a faucet or a garden hose. Give it a whirl. But why, oh, why would this be the girl? See, my friend Isabella doesn't like water in a cup or milk in a mug. My friend Isabella won't drink hot chocolate or pop in a can. I can see you shrug. She won't drink juice or drink yummy milk. See, my friend Isabella likes, are you ready for this? She loves pickle juice right out of the jar. Pickle juice while sitting in the car. Pickle juice here and pickle juice there. Pickle juice is pickle juice. Don't get it in your hair. So if you see a little girl drinking pickle juice out of the jar, you can be sure that her name is Isabella. And I won't be too far.
Well, I like that. It reminds me a little bit of a cross between Dr. Seuss and Shel Silverstein.
Thank you.
Yeah,
one thing I'm developing right now is a superhero series on the Hooded Vulture and Meerkat, and the first book is KEL TV. It's a television station.
Okay.
Nighttime and no moon above. The costume that he had bought at Walmart after last Thanksgiving was way too big for him, and he hadn't had an opportunity to adjust the size at all. It'll be completely disguised who he was, and he was relying on that. The drug house he was about to enter has been operating in his neighborhood for way too long now, but he couldn't be recognized and still live there after all. He found an open window and crawled through it. He was going to have to rely on his wits and his training in the old country. He had been a black belt for years now, but that had gotten rusty. He hoped he could pull this off. After those children died last week, he had to pull this off. There were 3 of them in the living room and 1 in the kitchen. He would take out the one in the kitchen first. With iron fists and a cast iron skillet, that bad guy was down, and he dragged him on the back porch and waited. "Piazzo!" yelled someone from the living room. "Piazzo, you good? Bring me a beer." There was no answer as Piazzo was laying on the back porch. "Piazzo, what are you doing in here?" The large man walked and looked around. Probably out back smoking the devil's lettuce. I tell you, him not used to the product. It'll take Hector take care of him. He grabbed a beer and walked back into the living room. Hey, Hector, Biazzo must be out back toking again. Sweet Jesus, Bialdo, can't you control your little brother? Hector came through the kitchen and onto the back porch just in time to see Piazzo laying there when an iron skillet hit his head and he passed out in a heap. The mysterious stranger in the costume that was too big was batting 50%. 2 down, 2 to go. Bialdo went to the window and looked out back. He didn't see Hector or his little brother and got concerned. I'll be right back, Chaz. You guard the product and don't let me like my little brother and use it. Bialdo went through the kitchen and onto the back porch only to find himself in the same predicament as the other two. One more to go, thought the man in the costume. First, however, he called the police and got them on their way so he could make his escape. Before long, he could hear sirens and Chaz started running through the kitchen, handful of product. The man in the costume stands in front of him, iron skillet in his hands. Who the heck are you? Asked Chaz. The man lowered his voice and so he wouldn't be recognized. I am the Hooded Vulture. Yes, the Hooded Vulture. Let that be known. There will be no drugs in this neighborhood, courtesy of the Hooded Vulture. With one hit, Chaz, too, was on the ground, and the Hooded Vulture escaped into the night, tripping over his costume as he left. I gotta adjust this thing, he thought to himself as he went into the moonless night.
It's captivating.
I hope.
I like your presentation as well. Yeah, it's excellent. I like your presentation. I like the storyline, what I'm seeing of it, what I got to hear of it. Did you have another one you'd like to read?
Yeah, I'm going to read something from Best Pizza.
All right, excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
Just to give you a little taste.
A taste of the best pizza.
There will be no murder in this. George Russo and his mom Rose bought Best Pizza in 1971. He was young and just out of high school and having a hard time finding a job. With George's 5'2" slim-built frame, he was picked on throughout his school days, and Best Pizza was a blessing in disguise. His mom Rose had come from Sicily with the great sauce recipes, not necessarily for pizza, but what if they decided to use it? George never really remembered his dad. He was killed in the Vietnam War. At least that's what his mom told him. He had been a United States Air Force serviceman stationed on the island when he met George's mom. A whirlwind romance and a night of hot passion left Rose alone with a child. George's hairline was much like his mother's father, bald on top, and to make up for it, he wore extremely long on the sides and back. Best Pizza grew from a little shop he and his mom started and ended up to one of the favorites of the townsfolk of Yellow Canary, Oklahoma, frequented by the mayor, the fire department, and the police. They would often gather there after shift and sit and talk about their day. George had always wanted to be a police officer, but being short and underweight, he couldn't. So he listened intently to all the details and lived through the lives of the police. Yellow Canary was a small town of 2,500 people. Not much went on that anyone didn't know about. When George's mom passed away in 2021, the whole town showed up for him. Flowers were all over the pizza shop, letters of condolences. Even the governor showed up at the funeral and gave George a huge hug. To say Rose and George's little pizza shop touched a lot of lives is an understatement. Then in late 2021, that the town seemed to be coming apart at the seams. They had found the head cheerleader murdered in the woods outside of town. Her body mutilated and her breast removed. To hear the police talk, it was a horrible sight. Sitting in Best Pizza, they would talk softly about the details, angering George, as he wanted to hear it all.
That's another captivating tale. Interesting.
And then it was well received on Amazon, and then I got quite a few people saying, "Hey, can you do the origin story of George?" And then didn't want him to stay inside the mental hospital, so I let him escape and come to Indiana.
Oh, okay, so did he come visit you?
Oh no, didn't visit me. Same town, but no, he didn't visit me.
Did you want to read another piece, or are you done?
That's all I prepared.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So, what's the future bringing you? What kind of works do you have in your mind that you haven't put on paper yet?
Well, right now I'm in the middle of Twat Waffle, or not quite the middle. My character's stuck in Chicago, waiting for 24 hours for a bus to go south. He met a girl online,
Mm-hmm.
and she sent him the money to come down to Texas and see her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what's funny about Kenny is he can't tell the truth. He can write the truth, he can type the truth, but if you were tell him to come out and say the truth, he can't tell it. So that gives awkward situations a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times.
That's
Like
interesting.
he told his mom he loved her dress, and so she went and changed.
That's quite a fascinating glitch in a person.
Yeah, and it's very hard to write because you have to think, okay, what does he want to say, and what's the opposite of that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of
Interesting.
fun to write. And then after I'm done with that, I'm going to go with the second book of the Hooded Vulture and Meerkat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So you've got plans to finish the superhero.
Yeah, I want to extend that out quite a few books is what I want to do because I think that it can be developed.
Mm-hmm. So is this superhero is just kind of a vigilante, from what I take it? Does he get into sort of these complex, meeting villains and that are kind of like super villains as
Yes,
well?
yes. The Red Eagle is his nemesis.
Interesting.
And
Where did you get the idea of coming up with using the birds?
well,
Eagle, vulture.
my one of my main characters in that book is from South Africa.
Okay.
So I tried to find animals or birds that were from that area. So that way he would identify with them.
Oh, okay.
So and then
Interesting.
the meerkat is actually somebody that he saved.
Okay.
So
So
and I've got ideas for other characters for that same series.
plenty of ideas. Always, I love the fact that writing is a never-ending process. Like even if you hit writer's block, you still have this. There's like this. The wheels are turning, in the back, and then suddenly you get a spurt of ideas, and it's like that's what you were saying earlier. You have to write these things down, have a pen and pad handy or something to put down on a composition book of
Right.
some kind. So
And
what? Yeah, go ahead.
it's I had just started writing again about a week ago because my wife had knee surgery, so
Mm-hmm.
I had to take a month off of writing just to help her with that. So I have just started writing again, and it's starting to flow. I'm about a quarter of the way done with Twat Waffle, and it'll be
Excellent.
interesting to see how it ends up because I know where I start and I know where I end, but don't ask me what's going to go on in between. That's all by chance.
Hmm. So the story tells itself, and to an extent.
Right. It just flows out of me.
So, what words of advice would you give to fellow writers out there watching the program today?
I was 59 years old when I wrote my first novel. Don't give up. If you have the dream, don't give up. Start small, write, publish,
Hmm.
and
Okay,
just
that's
keep doing
excellent.
it. As
It's
you
the
as
process.
you develop your craft, you're going to be able to write longer. You're going to be able to tell a better story. But if you're not doing anything, the story will stay inside you, and maybe that story is something that somebody needs to hear.
Mm-hmm. Maybe find some hope or some reason to live through our works of fiction and poetry and so forth. Some people out there you never know who will happen upon it. So, would you like to share any shout outs, thank yous to anybody, especially Jen Friend? I think we would give her a
Yeah,
little
Jen Friend, I want to thank her for introducing us. I want to thank my wife for being my editor. I know Best Pizza was not fun to edit, quite disturbing, but I
nod
appreciate
story.
her opportunity to or her willingness to edit that and everything else I write, and also
Mhm.
my friends that constantly encourage me to do better and to keep writing. And I mean, I've got a whole network of friends that are always pushing me and telling me, do it, do it, do it. And I do the same with them and whatever they're doing. It's just like a give and take. I've got one friend that I wish he would write more. He writes well, but he's living a rough life right now, so he doesn't feel like writing. But I encourage him. I encourage each and every one of you. You've got a story to tell, even if it's your own. Right now, I've got every spreadsheet right now of every year of my life, and when I think of a memory, I'm writing it down on there because eventually I'll probably do an autobiography.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like a fascinating process and prospect as well. I look forward to seeing what else you can come up with, and maybe having you on the show again sometime when you have a new book out to discuss.
That sounds good.
So thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thank you for having me, Dustin. It's been an honor. I look forward to seeing you again, and just want to encourage everybody, you have a story to tell, so tell it.
Absolutely. It's been wonderful and pleasant to have you. If you know of any other people that would be on the show that would love to be interviewed, let them know my email, publication.worldinkers@gmail.com, and I will definitely have them on the show if they get in touch with me. It's a wonderful experience to be interviewed and tell your story and get your work out there. So thanks for joining us today, Drew.
Thank you, Dustin.
You've been watching World Inkers Network, a Parrot TV show, and I am Dustin Pickering, and you can subscribe to our channel. We'd love to have you as a subscriber, and you can share our content as well. And if you don't want to do either of those things, then you can donate. We have a donation handle at PayPal, and that is paypal.me/nyparrot. paypal.me/nyparrot. That makes this show available to a lot of people and helps us promote, and as well as keep our access to our various things that we use for this show. So we would love to have any donation, small or large, anything you feel like you can spare out there if you're watching. And if you want to be a guest writer, I would love to have you send a bio and something I could use for a background, if you want to do that, to publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. And again, I'm Dustin Pickering. Subscribe to our channel. Have an excellent day. And don't forget, it's your turn to write. So start writing right now. Get to writing. Excellent. Sorry, there's a lag in our presentation. Thanks for joining the show. Get to writing.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot.